Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the E3 podcast. I'm Melissa Johnson. Today, I have MeiLani Hock on the phone. I've already messed up.
Hey, girl.
Sort of on the phone, on the computer. I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit better and share some of your story is really interesting. So I'm excited to dig into that and talk a little bit more about your career in real estate investing and how you got started and where you're at right now. So you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for having me on and for providing this platform. I love it. I love everything it represents, and I'm just honored to be on. So thank you. Thank you. A little bit of my background is that, oh goodness, let's see where to start. I'll start by how I got into real estate. Okay. So, Melissa and I both have 5 kids. And, when at the time I had just had number 4. Number 4 was about 6 weeks old when number 3, of course they have names, but just to make it easier for listeners. Right. So number 3 on his 2nd birthday was diagnosed with brain cancer. And so I had this 6-week-old at home. My oldest was just starting kindergarten. So really littles, right? I had littles. And when number 3 was diagnosed with brain cancer, I just remember knowing that my life wouldn't and couldn't ever be the same, because it wouldn't be the same because everything had changed, right? Like my mindset and everything, but it also couldn't because this couldn't have happened in vain. You know what I mean? And so maybe that's the first time I've actually ever said those out loud. But like, I think when it happened, I knew it wouldn't be the same. And then years later, I realized it couldn't be the same. And what I mean by that is, while we were going through this time, we had friends that would reach out and try to say soothing things, but sometimes it would just come out not great. And they would be like, man, is it just hard getting out of bed in the morning? Like, do you just sit and think, why did this happen to our family? Like, why did this happen to my son? And at the time, I talked about it with my husband, and I really didn't feel that way. And I really do think, and I don't mean to offend anybody of any faith, but I really do think it was because there were so many people praying for us all around the world. And I really believe that we had like this protective bubble around our home and around our family. So those negative thoughts, even though I had struggled with postpartum depression with some of my other kids, I didn't even have postpartum during this crazy time, even though I had a 6-week-old and we were going through cancer treatments. It was just crazy time, right? But it was a really sacred time with my kids, with my husband, that we really were protected. But when people were asking, do you just sit and think, why me? And we took that as an opportunity to kind of create a family mantra. We came up with 2 mantras during this time, mottos, whatever, that our last name is Hock, Hock. And so we came up with the mantra of Hawks do, and our kids are supposed to answer back hard things. Because going through this, we wanted to make sure that they understood it. It's not about, if hard things are going to come, right? Mm-hmm. It's about when. Right. And just realizing we do hard things, like we're up for the challenge. But then that kind of led into, we don't say, why me? We don't say, why can't I have that? Why can't I, sometimes we look at social media, and as women, we sometimes are like, oh man, how come my kids don't pose for a perfect Sunday family picture? Or how come my dinners don't look like that, right? Mm-hmm. That's just the social media dilemma that we live in nowadays. And so instead of thinking, why me, we tried to teach our kids, think, why not me? Why not me to do something amazing, to do, to be the person we want to be? And why not us also? Meaning whatever higher power you believe in believes in you and knows your potentials, knows what you can accomplish so much more than we can. So instead of thinking, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? And instead of cursing wherever that came from, we say, take it as like a badge of honor. Like some higher power believes in me and knows that I can do this hard thing. I can turn this trial into a triumph. And so think, why not me? And take it as a badge of honor. When hard trials come, it's because some higher power knows where he needs you to get, he or she, whatever that is for you, right? Knows where you need to get, where you need to get to. And this trial is going to get you there. And they know you're strong enough to get there. And so during this time, we thought, why not us? Because Heavenly Father believes that we can do this and our family can grow through this and we can get stronger and then we can help others also. And so at that time, I was actually in a terrible sales job that I did not love. And my husband was also in corporate America. And I remember sitting at the breakfast table and I said to my husband something along the lines of, well, it started with, I can't just sit around waiting for him to die anymore, because I felt like that's what I was just like, it was in the Lord's hands and it was in doctor's hands. Like I could do very little at this point. Like there was brain surgery, there was radiation, there was calculations of how the brain surgery was going to work, but I could do very little during this time. And I was like, I kind of want to, I've got a crazy idea, is what I remember saying to my husband. I was like, hey, you remember all of those things that we talked about when we were like dating and newlyweds? What if we did one of those? We had made this long list when we were first married of all the things we were going to do. And one of them was have a big family and make a lot of money. Like those were like two different line items. Mm-hmm. And we had there were lots of line items. We had done awesome at the big family, right? Like we were rocking that. We were pros at that, right? But all the other things, like become a real estate investor and build a big rental portfolio and live passively so that you can travel for 3 months out of the year, or whatever it is, like all of these things that we had they had become things that we talked about, not that we actually did. And I said to him, what if I actually did that? What if I actually just left my job and started investing in real estate like we've always talked about doing? And I'm so grateful to have a husband that said, well, we kind of have a lot on our plate right now, but if you want to do it, I think you should do it. And so then I started my first real estate investing company, which was awesome, and flipping houses, which was awesome. And that's what got me into real estate. And I'm so grateful that and then it kind of evolved over the years, which we can talk about if you want to. But then we actually started Why Not Me Academy, which that's where it came from, was to help people to stop saying why me, or to just make excuses, and to help people to stop talking and actually start doing the things that they've talked about doing all their lives. And that's kind of, so we started the real estate investing, but then we also started Why Not Me Academy about the same time. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, a few things. One, I totally had goosebumps when you were telling that story.
Oh,
just like,
sorry. I was talking forever. I was like, I haven't even let her talk. I've just been like, let me tell you.
I want to hear everything, because that's like, that was a pivotal moment for you. And I love how you turned that whole why me, like you shifted that whole mindset from a victim mentality to a position of real power. Like you took that power back for yourself. And because it would have been easy for you to just say, why is this happening to me, and everything. And then hearing all the friends, commenting, how do you get out of bed every day, which I'm sure was well-meaning, but probably when you're in that moment, that's like like you already know you have trouble getting out of bed. I'm sure you don't need it, a light shined on that.
Yeah. Oh, good. So you're all thinking that behind my back? Okay. You're all wondering. Don't worry. I'm still getting out of bed, guys.
I'm out of bed. It's fine. It's fine. But that's a lot. And I think too, like that just speaks to your mindset, you and your family, like that strength of mind and the power of your faith and everything, that you could take that thing that was so, like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. I've got 5 kids too. And if that happened to my kids, I don't know how I'd handle it. I would hope I would handle it as well as you seem to have. But to take all of that and turn that really into something positive, and really, like, is your whole family involved in this project?
Well, so it's actually funny as we're talking about this, my kids recently were just asked to be on a podcast, which is super cool, right? They
Love
see
it.
mommy record podcasts quite a lot, but they got invited to be on a podcast recently that was just beautiful. And it was because somebody had seen one of my Instagram posts, okay? And I had talked about how there was this really scary thing that happened. And Melissa, it's one of those things as a mom that it was like, oh my gosh, I just want to fix it. I just want to solve it for him. And we live on the East Coast, and the beaches are beautiful. They're like, Nicholas Sparks type beaches, right? So it's not like crashing waves, but it's like reeds coming up, and it's just beautiful. And my kids, also on the East Coast, you have crazy random storms. So they were out kayaking, and this is my 12-year-old and my 10-year-old, and they were with my niece who's in her young 20s, and they went out kayaking when all of a sudden one of those crazy storms came out,
Oh my
and they
God.
were like 100 yards away. I don't even know if I'm like terrible with measurements, but they were far enough, and the wind and the rain was so hard and so crazy that they couldn't hear me. And so I went out to the dock to be like, Kate, come on, and they're like, obviously we're trying, but they were stranded out there. And it was just, I could see them, but obviously I couldn't do anything because they had taken all the kayaks, and there was nothing I could do to help besides just tell them, okay, it's going to be okay. But they couldn't even hear me say that. So I'm trying to root for them really loud. And anyways, long story short, trying to be short, sorry. They realized that they had accidentally brought a cell phone. Like, what a blessing, right?
Oh,
They had
wow.
accidentally brought a cell phone, and so we're able to call, but we can't hear every single word. But finally I'm like, what can I say to them? Because they were kind of shutting down. They were just sobbing and like not knowing, like they weren't functioning anymore, because it was scary. It was scary. And they knew if they came straight back, they tried to, and they kept tipping. But anyways, so I was like, what can I say to them to hopefully give them the energy and the excitement or whatever? And I just said to them, well, with the rain and the wind, and I said, Hawks do. And I just said it like so loud. And it was so sweet, because my daughter's automatic response was hard things. And
Oh,
through her like teary, beautiful voice, I just thought, okay, they kind of hate it that when I make them shout that after they've had a hard day at school or something like that, but it sunk in. And they both started paddling, and they were chanting, Hawks do hard things. It was just so beautiful. And I thought in that moment, how important it is to be a mother, but also that it's okay for them to recognize that hard things are real, and to realize that, oh, there's so many things. I learned so many lessons during this time, Melissa, but I love all the things that they see that we do that are hard, that we survived cancer as a family. Oh, I need to mention that AJ's doing great, and it's been 8 years, and he's super healthy, and he's wonderful. We survived cancer as a family, and we know how blessed we are. Because of his graduating class, he's the only one still around, and we don't take that lightly. That's another reason that inspired Why Not Me Academy that we started, is because we want people to seize the day. We want people to take advantage of every day they do have with your kids, because you never know what's going to happen. But I also want them to know that mommy works really hard. Like, we have a beautiful lifestyle. Like, I love, last year we all loaded in the minivan, and we just took off for 3 months and traveled to, Mount Rushmore and to the Alamo and biked the Golden Gate Bridge. We have a very beautiful life. But they also see mommy work really hard, and sometimes late at night, and sometimes in the morning. And so I like them to know that we do hard things, or when we're out stranded and we feel like we're all alone, that we can remember we do hard things, whatever that is. And, another time that kind of led me to where I am now. So when I started flipping houses, right? I was like, that's the dream, because that's what I had read about. I'm going to make so much money flipping houses, which was great for a while. But then we had a crummy year. One year we just had a crummy year. Like, it was one thing after another. I think the Lord was trying to tell me, hey, there's more out there. You need to move on. But it was like lawsuits, and one of the plumbers that we had used right at this time, we were doing tear down new builds, right? And so we had this one plumber that had worked on 5 of the same floor plan, had had used a pipe that was 1/4 of an inch too small. And 1 month after another, all of these $500,000 houses each flooded right before they were supposed to hit the market.
Oh my God.
And he had just done it the exact same way on every single one. And so it was almost like clockwork. We knew when they were going to burst, and was like, well, do we go and rip up everything? But by that time they'd all stolen. Anyway, so just crazy things like that. We had a drive-by shooting on one of our properties, which is terrible. And God bless his family. And it was, and I feel terrible even saying this, but we had already taken the pictures, and it was supposed to be listed on Saturday, and this happened on Thursday. And so we didn't list that property for a while because the memorial just grew and grew, candles and flowers. You can't show a brand new beautiful house with that going on, right?
Yeah.
And so like just
Not
all these things, right? So during this time, it was crazy that I was like, you know what? I'm done flipping houses. It was fun for a while. We won a bunch of awards, made a bunch of money, but I'm done. And there was a terrible lawsuit with one of my general contractors that was just heartbreaking. I felt like I was getting a divorce because I loved this man. We had worked together well, but then it was terrible how it ended. Anyway, so I kind of felt like, in a way, that I'd always wanted to get into flipping houses. I wanted to be a real estate investor. And I thought, okay, I just got to start flipping houses. And I had talked about how great it was going to be. And I thought I knew what it was going to look like from that view. And it's almost like it was a mountain, right? And I had the courage to finally start climbing that mountain. And as we got close to the top, like, I'm not going to act like I'm not Joanna Gaines. All right. Like, I don't have my own HGTV show. Like, I know I'm not at the top of the mountain. Right. But I got a little glimpse of it, and we were doing pretty well. When all of a sudden I felt like this year of crummy stuff was like this avalanche. And as the avalanche started to subside, and the avalanche for me was bad. It came with depression. It came with being curled in a ball on the floor, and the kids had to see mommy and daddy. During this time, guys, during cancer, I didn't think why me. During this time, I thought why me every single day. We were leveraged about $5 million, and we were about to lose everything. And I felt nauseous every single day. Yes, we could have declared bankruptcy, but I had private lenders that I loved and I trusted, and I couldn't do that to them. And if you know anything about real estate, private lenders are amazing. I don't know them face to face, but they've been lending money to me for years, 5 years. And one family in particular, I was literally having nightmares of, because they had invested their deceased father's and husband's 9/11 memorial fund with me. And when my attorney said, okay, let's talk about declaring bankruptcy, I was like, you don't understand. Like, I've never met these people face to face, but I love them. Like, they have trusted me, and I'm a woman of integrity. Like, I am not going to do this to them. I will do whatever I can to make sure that I pay these people back. And so that was my avalanche, guys. It was not a great time for the MeiLani, right? And at that time it was like, okay, I've got to get out of this avalanche. And I feel I started, okay, what's my options? My options were, one, I could dig myself out and just go back down to the bottom and be like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with real estate. I'm done with real estate investing. Like, it's too risky. It's too risky. And Melissa, I wanted so bad to do that. I wanted so bad to just be like, you know what? I'm not cut out for this. And that's the way I was leaning. But I'm so glad I didn't. Because I was really worried that if I ever climbed down that mountain, that I would never get on any mountain ever again. I would never take any risk ever again if I would have been like, you know what? It's been a good run, 5 years, but I'm done. And then the other option was like to dig myself out of the avalanche, put on my big girl pants, and try to get back up to the top, right? But when I looked at how I had gotten, I'd done pretty well. But I realized that it wasn't providing the lifestyle I had thought. The view from the top of the mountain wasn't exactly what I thought it was, right? I thought it was going to have this perfect, I'm not one to really believe in the balance between being a mom and running a business, but I am one to believe in harmony, right? And it wasn't providing the harmony that I wanted, because I was definitely, if it was a balance thing, it was definitely on the working side, right? And it wasn't providing the lifestyle that I wanted with my kids. And that was the whole reason I had gotten into real estate. And so I feel like those were my two options. But then all of a sudden I realized there was a third option. And for me, I realized that the Avalanche had almost created a bridge. All that stuff that is coming down, I realized there was a bridge. And for me, that bridge was hosting Airbnbs and hosting short-term rentals. And that might sound cheesy, that might sound corny, but I had done it kind of as, okay, maybe this will be fun to get a little bit of side income or whatever. And then all of a sudden, when this crap was happening with, sorry, I shouldn't say crap. My kids are starting to say it, so I'm going to stop it. But when all this is going on, I realized, oh my goodness, my short-term rental business is rocking it. What if that's the reason I got into real estate? And as I started on this bridge, all of a sudden I realized that this view was so much better than I ever thought possible with flipping houses. And I saw it was like a whole valley of things that I now had opportunities for. There was so much more out there than just flipping houses that I hadn't even realized. But there's no way I would have had the courage to go over to that direction if I wouldn't have gotten on the first mountain and if I wouldn't have started just climbing, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that we found short-term rentals because it's provided a whole different lifestyle. I flipped houses for 5 years, hoping and praying that someday, I could get my husband out of corporate America, but I just could not do it. I couldn't do it. We would do really, really well, but then we'd be looking for projects again. And we do really, it's just so hit or miss. Whereas with short-term rentals, it's this beautiful thing, guys. If you're a flipper or a house flipper or a rehabber, there's this beautiful thing that all of a sudden when you set up a short-term rental, money just magically appears in your account every single week, and you don't have to go out and find another project. It's beautiful. And so anyways, so I do short-term rentals now. I host Airbnbs. I use other people's properties. I use my own properties. I manage other people's Airbnbs, and it's provided a way that, my husband was able to leave his job full time, and we're able to travel a lot more, and we get to write it off as research. It's really the best gig ever. So yeah, I fell in love with short-term rentals, and I'm so grateful that I got on the mountain, and then I had the courage to take the bridge wherever it took me.
I love that. That's I want to kind of unpack that a little bit too, because I find myself on a similar journey, not exactly, but I think when you're in this business for a long time, you experience different things. You flipped houses, and I flipped houses, and I've done other stuff too, wholesaling and buying rental properties and creating notes and things like that. But when you do all the different things, you do kind of start to see okay, is this played out now? Do I like this? What do I like about it? What don't I like about it? And just because you feel stuck in a certain piece of that doesn't necessarily mean you're done with the whole thing, right? Just because flipping sucks right now doesn't mean you're done with real estate completely. There's so many other options. Like you said, I mean, you could be an agent, you could have Airbnbs, you could go into multifamily, commercial, redevelopment, new construction, all these other different avenues to be explored, but you didn't give up. You did the hard thing, and you pivoted into something else that, you don't know until you try these things. And that's one thing when I'm coaching people, it's let's work on a few different exit strategies, not all of them, because I think that can be dangerous too when you're just dabbling in everything and not really mastering anything. I really believe in mastering what you're doing before moving on to the next phase of things. And when you are ready to level up, finding people like coaches or mentors or whatever that can help lift you up to that next level. You don't have to just stay here all the time. Yeah. And for me, I find myself in that position right now. It's I've flipped houses for 18 years. I'm a little tired of flipping houses, and I'm it's okay, what's next? And for me, it was coaching, but also from it's I still have this skill set and I still enjoy that. So what else can I do with that? So I'm actually looking into other things like you, what else can I do? What's something new and different? I think people need to hear that. I think it's really important what you're saying, that, the view is different from everywhere, and you don't know until you actually go there, cross that bridge, get to that get to that, peak and see what's down there.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I 100% agree. You can do everything. You just can't do everything right now. And
Yeah.
so whatever path that is for you right now, what are you focusing on right now to build, and then put a system to it? Like you said, talk to a coach, talk to a mentor so that they can help you set up a system so that it doesn't take over your life. That is not the goal. As you know, this is a very women heavy podcast, I would guess, with the listenership, right? And so as women, that is not our goal, especially if you have kids. Like, not only if you have kids, but especially if you have kids, like, we are not sending them to daycare and working late nights and missing out on, sometimes mommy daughter teas or whatever. You don't do that for no reason, right? And when I was flipping houses, it got to the point that I felt like I was doing it for no reason because I wasn't growing into being able to scale and turn it into a passive stream of income.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I wanted to do, right? So
yeah. So let's talk about your Airbnb business for a minute. Tell me about what that looks like. How do you have that set up? How are you finding the properties? You said you mentioned that you manage your own stuff too. So kind of just talk about that a little bit.
Oh, okay. So when I started, guys, I was about $5 million in debt. It was over 4, not quite 5. Okay. I don't want to be an exaggerator, but it was a lot of money.
That's
and
still a lot.
For some of you, thank you. I was going to say for some of you, you're like, oh, this is California. This is Boston. Like, that's chump change, but no, like for me, it was a lot of money. And so I didn't have a lot of money. And so at the time we were like selling off all of our rentals for sure. Like, we were about to lose our home. We were about to lose everything. Like, I had to sell off everything. All these long-term rentals that I had built up so that I could have this portfolio, and we were selling them off. Right. And I didn't have, like, my credit wasn't terrible, but it's not like I could go brag about my balance sheet or anything at that time. And so I started doing what's called arbitraging, properties, which is basically, we don't call it this when we're actually talking to landlords, but it's basically subletting the house. And you go to a landlord that has posted it on, Facebook Marketplace or Zillow or whatever, and you approach them and you say, I'd like to, your house is so perfect. It's exactly what I've been looking for. And then you start to tell them, oh my goodness, I'm the cleanest tenant you're ever going to have. I have the professional cleaners come in multiple times a week and per month. And I love it so much that I hope I'm your last tenant because this is perfect. It's exactly what we were looking for. And when you're done with it, when you decide you don't want to be a landlord anymore, I hope this lasts for a long time, but if not, then can I be first in line to buy it because I love it. And then you've got their attention, right? If you're a landlord, those things will get your attention because then they don't have to look for new renters. You're going to take good care of the property. So you've got their attention. And then you say, I am a kind of a unique renter though. Is it okay if we talk about a little bit more? You always ask for permission before you're about to pitch anything, right? Is it okay if we talk a little bit more about that? Because now you have their attention and they're intrigued. And then you get into, well, here's actually how it works. And you're going to short-term rent it out. And you talk about all the perks, and you've just got to make sure that you're backed by a good contract. Okay. So you can use whatever contract, but you do have to have a good addendum to do it. So that's called arbitrage, using other people's properties, but you are paying a monthly set rate. Just like a regular contract, right? You're going to sign a 6 month lease, 12 months, 24, and then you rent it out. And there's many months that I make more than my landlords do, right? So let's say you're paying $2,000 a month for a property, $3,000, whatever. And there's, you might, the gross might be $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. So then you pay out your rent and you pay your utilities, and then you get to keep whatever's left over, right? So that's called arbitrage. And then there's something called co-hosting, which is pretty much property management for short-term rentals. You handle all the communication, all of that, but it's based off of a percentage. Usually we charge anywhere from 20 to 25%. Whereas if you have a property manager on a long-term rental, usually they charge 8 to 12%, but we are going to make them a lot more money than a regular long-term property manager would. And so we charge 20 to 25%. And then the co-hosting allows you to be a lot really creative too, because usually I have them pay for all the furnishings. So if you got no money, then you can set it up that way, so that they're paying for all the towels, the sheets, the dishes, everything. With Arbitrage, there are ways to do it on like a 0% credit card, because you are not going to take on a property unless this property breaks even within 12 months for sure. My goal is 6 to 10 months, right? And so that I'm not telling people to just go get 0% credit cards to go buy a boat and a house, or, like you're not going to go buy clothes and coffee on this 0% credit card. All right. But if you're using it to invest it wisely and you're going to pay it off, then there's a plan, right? And so Arbitrage, co-hosting, and then also if we own any properties, or the goal is to own all of them, right? When we first started, we were just looking for anybody who would say yes to us. But now we only get properties that we would someday want to buy and add to our portfolio. So because that's the long-term play, right? You want to be building that equity at the beginning when you're arbitraging and you're co-hosting and the air conditioning breaks. It's like, oh, I'm so glad I don't own this property. And you call the landlord and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, your air conditioning is broken, but I don't have to pay for it. And so that is the huge perk of doing arbitrage and co-hosting. But eventually you're going to want to purchase that property, right? You want it to have the long-term plan. You don't want a landlord to be able to say someday, oh, you know what, we've decided we just want to, we want a new renter. So you want to have that control, but that can be, some of our landlords, they're like, no, I love this. I love this. You pay early, you keep it clean. Like, we've seen the property. We see that you have 5-star reviews. They stalk us on Airbnb or other platforms. And so they're like, no, we love this. Sorry, we're never selling it. So that's okay too. We're still doing well on those also. So just running the numbers to make sure that it works. And like I said earlier, it's just this wonderful thing of it can be really hard to set up a property. It takes 2 weeks, maybe 3, right? But it's nothing like flipping houses, right? So you set up a property and then hopefully you have it for 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And it's very little maintenance after you've gotten it set up, right? When I set up a property, I hope to not go back to my property for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Now, obviously I don't go to my properties at all because I have hired that out, that I have a project manager that does that. But you're not going to the property all the time. Please don't clean your own properties. Please don't hire that out. Right. So I love that last year when we did our trip and we were traveling all over, that everything I needed to do was in my phone. I don't go to the properties anymore. I have a cleaning team and I have a maintenance guy and I have a property manager that they go and check to make sure everything is in the standard we want, right? So you just have to have those 3 people that you find and use as independent contractors so that you can go and do whatever you want, whether that's traveling the world or, I don't know, whatever other people do. I just like to travel.
That's what I would want to do. I would want to travel. I have so many questions. Okay. So when you're doing these leases, how long of a lease are you typically signing?
So if it is May, June, July, August, it's going to be really hard to get a 6-month lease. I like to do 6-month leases because usually that gives them a chance to be like, oh yeah, let's test this. Mm-hmm. And then also I compare it to dating, right? So when you're dating, you're trying to find out the quirks of that person before you marry it. And I feel the same way about Airbnb. I want to test the neighbors. I want to test the occupancy rate. I want to test, the landlord to make sure he responds. One time we had to get out of a contract because a dishwasher had been broken and the place had bugs that we didn't know about. And the landlord was doing nothing about it. He kept saying somebody was coming and nobody ever came. So we're dating this person to find out the quirks. We're also dating the property to make sure that everything is what we want it to be. So I like 6-month contracts. But I also, some people recently I was on a Clubhouse with somebody and he's like, MeiLani and I could not be more opposite. He's like, I love 2-year contracts because I don't want to go through the whole process of staging the property, taking pictures, and then all of a sudden in 6 months being the landlord having the opportunity to be like, I don't like this. Never mind, you're out. I've never had a landlord say that, so there are 2 sides to it because my goal really is I don't want to go through all the work and not have it work out, but I like having that out in case you do need it. You know what I mean? So in November, December, January, it's actually pretty easy to get a 6-month lease. You know, October, those are great 6-month leases times. If I really want a property, I've run the numbers, I know it's going to be great, then I sign a 2-year contract. That's totally fine. But in your addendum, you need to make sure that it is properly stated that you can get out for all these different reasons, right? So I'm not afraid to sign a 2-year lease as long as they sign my contract, my addendum that says, oh, if this happens, then I can get out of it. Does that make sense? So the answer is 6, 12, 24, whatever it is, just as long as you're smart about it and you're protected properly.
I love that. Man, you know what? You're the first I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Oh my goodness.
I've heard of people doing Airbnbs, but they're like actually buying the property and doing it. Like, this is, girl, my brain is like,
right?
like,
I love that.
My ears right now. Cause I'm like, I need to work. So that, like, okay, I'm just like blown away right now. My brain, because I went through a divorce last year and we had to, spill out of our assets and stuff. And a lot of that was rental properties. So I lost a big chunk of portfolio, going through all that. And
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's, it's good. It's fine now. But thinking like, okay, I want to get my portfolio back to where it was, but I also can't buy properties how I used to buy them. I mean,
yes,
be running around buying stuff for, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, maybe tops for like a rental.
Yeah.
And putting a little bit of money into it and, renting it out, but you just can't buy stuff like that right now. But this is like a great way to have that passive income and to build a portfolio over time in a way that, you don't have a lot of cash out of pocket and you're not having to, try to buy a deal, make a deal, be a deal, and just, it's
and
really smart.
Like you talked about before, like, I love that, like when we were talking about like climbing up our mountain, right? Like we took everything that we got from the mountain and like taking the things I learned when I was flipping houses and when I was wholesaling and when I was doing notes and like creative financing, like owner financing, subject to lease options, like all of those things. If you don't know what those words are, go Google them and start watching tutorials on them, because as soon as you can get your head around creative financing options too, then it's like, okay, now you've got a whole bunch more in your toolkit that you can offer to landlords of maybe you do a lease to own kind of thing, or there's just so many different ways that you can be creative with it while you're doing that.
Think about the market right now.
Yes.
There are so many tired landlords out there. We've just gone a year through, COVID and stuff, and there's people that, they haven't been paying their rent and stuff, and we had the whole moratorium on foreclosures and evictions and stuff, but that's all changing now. So you have a ton of, disgruntled landlords that if you came to them with this, like, this is a great solution. If somebody came to me with this, I'd be all ears for one of my properties. I would be all ears.
Yeah. And so when my clients or students or whatever you want to call them, when my awesome people I work with, when they go and pitch landlords, I tell them, don't be afraid of the no, because all it takes is like one yes. And that one yes could have 8 properties. You know what I mean? And so now we haven't looked for properties for like 2 years because all of the landlords and the property managers that we worked with, they call us now and say, hey, we've got another one. We've got another one. And so once you find your base, they're going to come to you. They're going to come out of the woodwork. So it does take, not everybody gets it, right? And so usually it takes me 10 landlord pitches before I get one yes. So, right, you got to have a tough skin and hear a lot of no's before you hear a yes. But when you hear the yeses, oh my goodness, you treat them like gold. I send them chocolates at Christmas time. I send them, I might not have ever met them in my life, but they know who I am. And they know that they're going to get emails from me, that they text me, that they just keep on sending them to me. So once you get a couple yeses, then it's magic.
That's great. And think about all the landlords that own multiple properties too.
Yeah. And so when I pitch somebody, sorry, my computer was not plugged in and it was about to die. So yeah, when you find somebody, then it's like, okay, you're saying yes to this, or when you're in the middle of the pitch and they're starting to have questions, that's one of those things that I say to like reboot them of, if they're like, but I hear that Airbnbs have like parties, like how do you handle, if they start asking these questions that it's like, okay, they don't get it, then you're going to answer the question, right? You're going to resolve the thing, but then you're going to be like, and do you have any other properties in the area? Because we'd love to rent others if you're open to it. We don't want you to ever have to put a property on the market again. We'll rent them until you're ready to sell any of them, and all of a sudden they're like, like, because nobody, as a landlord, nobody likes to have to interview and pray that you get good tenants, so as soon as you can reboot their mind with that, like, awesome, keep sending us properties, we'll take them.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like, landlording is my least favorite part of real estate. Like, I know I need rental properties, but I hate being a landlord.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy, I mean, I have delegated that off now, but
Right.
it's just, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. And then, but this is different because it's not all on you. Like, you're really just responsible for, running an Airbnb. And people that rent Airbnbs typically they understand how it works. Most of them have done it before. It's just, this is like, so what do you do if, like, you say you get a property and you're doing this for a while and everything, and then the landlord's like, well, you're making all this money, like, why shouldn't I just do this myself? Do you ever run into that? And how do you handle it?
People ask that question a lot, honestly, and let me see if I can answer it two ways. One, great, okay, at the end of our lease we'll just head on out, because we can just take that furniture and we'll go find another property, right? Like, you don't say that to the landlord, but that's the beauty of it. If after a 6-month lease it's not working out, I'm just going to take that same beautiful furniture and go put it in another property, right? So don't be afraid to walk out on a deal. Like, yeah, it's going to take a couple days to reset up a property, but not a big deal, right? But the other thing is I don't know about you, but when I first started in real estate and I was like, I'm all in, like, I want to learn from the best. Like, I believe in mentors and coaches. And I paid a whole lot of money to go to a seminar and to sign up for a course. And after the first day, at the end of the first day, our teacher, coach, whatever, challenged us to do something. And it was super easy. It would require one phone call. And he's like, anybody who does that and whoever can do it the most, like, it was like a competition, right? Then I have $1,000 here. I will give this $1,000 to anybody at 9:15 tomorrow morning, whoever does it, and whoever gets the most, right? And we're in a room of like 300 people or something like that. And so I went home and I'm like, oh my gosh, what a waste of time. Like, I'm not going to do that. It's not worth it, right? Well, I get to the event, the day 2, 5 minutes early, which never happens with me, right? Like, it was a miracle. And I was like, what am I going to do for 5 minutes? And I was like, all right, I'll play his game. So I call who I was supposed to call, and I had to use my negotiation skills to see what I could get out of it. And at 9:15, he says, all right, who did the challenge? Who did the challenge? And I was in a room of people who had paid a bunch of money to be there. And out of the 300 people, only 6 of us had done it.
Wow.
And when they said, how much did you negotiate? I was second. And it had taken me less than 5 minutes to do it. And I was so sad because I was so close to winning the $1,000. And at that time, I like, $1,000 is like a lot of money, right? Like, for sure, right? And sometimes we just think, why, what, aren't they going to want to do it? Yes. Everybody is going to want to do it. And sadly, only 1% is actually going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes. So many people say, I want to do that. I want to do that. And good. You're going to say, I'm going to help you do that. And so when I co-host, I say, you know what? I'm going to set up your account for you. I'm going to set this up for you. And if you ever want to take it over, totally fine. That's when we're co-hosting, right? Mm-hmm. You can have it back at any time. And they think they want to do it, but so few people are willing to actually take the jump and put the work into it. That's fine. And honestly, you kind of got me on a soapbox, because even for my course, people will pay money and I try to make it affordable, right? But it's still it's still money.
Mm-hmm.
But then they take my course and they don't do anything with it. And it drives me bonkers. And that's why we had to start our mentorship program, is because you paid for a course and then you didn't do anything with it. Like, I was so frustrated that my students weren't actually doing it. And they're like, yeah, I called like 3 landlords and they said no. And I'm like, like, there's so much greatness. Okay, well, we've really taken this mountain avalanche thing to like the furthest point, but I'm going to take it one more step further. But it's like,
keep climbing, girl.
right? Keep climbing, right? So like, there's just so much more. Like, you're seeing like barely the top of the trees. But once you get above that, like, oh my gosh, you are so close to greatness. It's going to be hard, but like, you're so close. And so I get that question a lot, actually. I've never had a landlord actually do it, but I have a lot of people say, oh, well, that's interesting, especially because some of the people I target are those kind of people that are like, oh, I've kind of wanted to try it. Then their brain's already open to it. So it makes my job a lot easier. So I actually target the landlords that talk like that, because then they feel like we're JVing, like we're joint, we're partners in this kind of thing. So that doesn't actually scare me off. That actually attracts me to those kind of landlords.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you're so right on, like, just to hit again with that point of taking action, because I think a lot of people need to hear this. You do buy the course or go to the seminar or, whatever. And you've got to do the things though. Like, just going doesn't make it happen for you. It doesn't make you successful. I see that with the coaching all the time too. Like, I finally put a thing in my coaching form, like, we'll do this conversation. Are you ready to take action now? That's one of my questions. And they all say yes. But then, you get people and they're like, well, I really want to, but
yes,
X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, then you really don't want to. I mean, I'm here when you're ready. Obviously you're not ready yet, but they, they think they're ready. But then when it comes time to actually pull the trigger and do something, it's like, there's 10 excuses of why you can't suddenly.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you can't afford not to. If that's where you want to go, you can't afford not to do it, right?
Yes. And I remember back at that breakfast table when I had told my husband we're going to do something crazy, and I went to a cheaper seminar, right, to find out if house flipping was really what I wanted to do. It was at that phase, and I'd gone to the first day of the seminar. And I was leaving early because I was like, you know what? They are going to try to sell me something and I don't want to buy it. Like, this is kind of embarrassing to people being on this side of the mountain now, but I'm sure that there are people out there that are like me, maybe, but this is kind of embarrassing that when I heard the free add-on, like the radio thing, that it was like, come for a free training or like $197 training or whatever it was, the 3 days. And it's like, we will teach you so much great stuff. I was like, oh, I know they're going to do a sales pitch at the end, but I am not falling for that. Like, I'm just going to go and take all my notes and then I'm going to go and conquer the world of flipping houses based on that one day, right? Like, I thought, I don't need a mentor. Like, and now looking back, I'm like, oh, little Lonnie. Like, I really did think, I'm going to learn all I need to in that one day. Right. Anyway, so on that one day, and I was like, I've got to leave early because I don't want to fall into their sales tactics, like they're going to pitch me and I am not having it. So I am just going to leave. And I started feeling like guilt because at this time we were going through cancer treatments and I had young kids and I had serious mom guilt of, what are you doing here? Like, you shouldn't be here. You should be taking care of your kids. And I sat there and it was weighing so hard that I got up and I left earlier than I had planned. And as I went out, it's like in a hotel, right? And I went out of the ballroom and I'm leaving like that foyer area when one of the sales guys like targeted in on me. I was like, nope, like I'm strong.
Don't make eye contact.
Don't make eye contact, right? And I went to go open the door and he's like, hey, you heading out already? And I was like, yeah, I am. And he said, is it just not for you? And I said, well, I know I'm going to do it someday. I totally am. But we've got young kids, and actually my son was just diagnosed with brain cancer last month, and we're trying to figure it out. And I kid you not, for the months, I think it was like 3 months ago. For 3 months, people have been tiptoeing around me, just asking how I was and just like tiptoeing. And this guy looks at me and nods. And when I finished, he said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I guess we all have our own excuses though. And it was like, what? Like, I just told you my son has brain cancer. Like, we are going through something right now. But he said, we went through a similar thing. And you know what? It was when my son was diagnosed. It wasn't with cancer, but it was something else. He said, that's when I realized that's why I have to do this. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, first off, rude, but I'm so glad you're being rude to me, because it was the first person that had talked straight at me and said, that's an excuse. That's an excuse to not take your family to the level that they need to be at, and to not take you and to challenge you, like talking to me of, I need to become that person. I can be doing more. And anyway, so I'm so glad that he called me out, and he's like, you're just making excuses. And so we do as mothers, like, there's a good, better, best, right? There's different levels, and we've got to find out for each of us individually what that good, better, best is. And I've got to tell you, I am so grateful for the people who their best, what brings them the most joy in their life is to be a school teacher. I am so grateful for that, especially after COVID year, right? Yeah. Some of my kids' teachers that I'm just like, thank you that you love this. I'm so grateful that you love this. And I'm so grateful that this brilliant brain surgeon, that's what he wanted to do, and that's what brings him joy. And so I'm not saying that everybody should just go be an entrepreneur and be a real estate investor. Like, that's not that. Everybody has a good, different, good, better, best, right? So, but I want you to figure out what your best is and what brings you joy and what pushes you. And I want you to do it, because why not you to do something amazing and to live that lifestyle that you want to live?
Amen. Wow. I feel like we need to drop the mic now. What else can we say at this point?
I kind of like saw how late it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, I better wrap this up. Okay.
Oh man. Yeah. Like, we do create those excuses for ourselves, and it's not an excuse. I mean, you were legitimately going through something, but it's almost too, like, you know, you were talking about mom guilt, and I just want to touch that for just 1 second, but you know, we all experience that, but you know, you're like, well, I should be home taking care of my kids or whatever. But by being there and by getting that education, and you are taking care of your family. And I think women need to hear that. Like, it's not a selfish thing, you know, to do that, because your heart's in the right place. And the end goal, when you're looking at that big picture, when you're standing at the top of that mountain and you're looking at everything that's out there, you know, that's why we do this stuff. We are taking care of our families. And this is just the vehicle to do it. You know, for some people it's real estate, you know, for some people it's teaching or whatever, it's something else. But I agree. Find that thing, find your jam, and just
and whatever your jam is, like, if it's brain surgery, if it's school teacher, if it's bus driver, whatever your jam is, no matter what, you can also be doing investing, and you can also be creating that passive income, so that when you are ready, like, that might not be until you're 65. Okay, that's cool if that's when you want to retire, like, from your day jam, we'll call it. But you should be creative, that, like, creating that passive income, so that when you do want to, it's there, you know?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to get in touch with you and learn more about the Why Not Me Academy and the Airbnb stuff that you're doing, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. So Instagram is probably best. So my name is Hawaiian. I was born in Hawaii. So it's MeiLani Hock, MeiLani Hock. Reach out to me on Instagram, or you can DM me, or you can look in my profile, and there's a link tree there that I have some free webinars, or I have some sometimes even my books on there that's free. So yeah, just check out whatever is going on right then on the link tree there. But also whynotmeacademy.com, and reach out to us there and let me know if you have any questions. But we'd love to connect and be friends. I love connecting with other powerhouse women. So definitely please reach out on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and hope you get to feeling 100% soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank